All right, we're going to get started here. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Vercel's Black Friday webinar, Tips for a Successful Black Friday with Vercel. I'm so excited to be here along with the team today, um, uh, filling you in on what Black Friday looks like with Vercel and our customers. Um, let's just first introduce the team. I'll start with myself. My name is Cody Ogden. I'm the manager of our technical consulting team here at Vercel. So I work inside of customer success and with a team of essentially field engineers, and we work alongside our enterprise customers to just help them be successful with our product and technology and help them prepare for events just like Black Friday. Dom, you want to take a second to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Dom. I'm a solutions architect working with enterprise customers. I'm with Vercel nearly 3 years right now, and I'm specializing in e-commerce, web performance, and SEO, and obviously Next.js and Vercel. Thank you very much. Krista?
Thanks, Tom. My name is Krista Gorelzik, and I'm a sales engineer here at Vercel. I've been at Vercel about a year. Before I was at Vercel, I was a full stack engineer leaning more front end. I've been working with React since about 2016 and Next.js for quite some time now, I think since like version 12. So yeah, I've worked in pretty much every industry, software as a service, real estate, fintech, really everything across the board. But yeah, happy to talk more about Black Friday and how to optimize that on Vercel. So pass it over to Jason.
Hello. Jason Weicker, based out of Calgary, Canada. And Krista's on my team as well. I work alongside all of our largest enterprise customers, both getting them set up before they launch their site on Vercel, and then also making sure they're successful as they launch and scale as many sites as they need, especially during times like now during Black Friday. And I'll throw it over to Cody.
Thanks. All right, we've got a packed agenda today, but we'll walk through it here. First, we're going to talk about why is the goal for us to have Black Friday be boring? It sounds kind of antithetical to what Black Friday should be. It should be exciting, right? Next, we'll talk about preparing for Black Friday on Vercel and go through a kind of a checklist of items that we recommend to customers from the customer success side. We'll talk a bit about how Vercel is working to ensure that you have success on Black Friday and some of the features we've shipped over the past year that you can adopt and configure pretty quickly. We'll also kind of touch on what you can expect around resources and support and what's available to your team. And finally, we're going to have a live Q&A at the end with this panel. I encourage everyone to use the Q&A feature. If you look at the Zoom bottom bar of Zoom, there's a Q&A button. You can hit that so you can log your questions there, and we'll be able to tackle them kind of as we get towards the end of the webinar. All right, well, we'll get started here. Up first is me. So why is boring the goal of Black Friday? Well, I've been with Vercel for 2.5 years now. And I've been through a couple Black Fridays now. And one of the things that I've always found fascinating is to call Black Friday boring. That's ultimately what it should be for our customers and for us, because that really implies a really sense of confidence in our platform and our infrastructure, and it's going to be able to scale and handle the volumes of traffic that come with a sales event like Black Friday and Cyber Monday. It means that you're going to have predictable performance across all of your properties that are hosted on Vercel, and you're not going to see a degradation in things like core vitals or time to first byte, because we have just robust infrastructure that really supplies and ensures that as far as your engineering team is concerned, a successful sales event. It also means that your team can really be focused on stress-free initiatives like increasing your team productivity or providing better customer experiences, and allows you to really focus on the strategic initiatives that your engineering team can spend their time on instead of worrying about oh, is the site up? Ooh, are we going to survive this event? Black Friday ultimately should be boring. It should be any other day that you do business on Vercel, and we're prepared to handle that for you. Let's talk a bit. We've got our first poll question here. So the first poll question is, how confident is your team at handling heading into Black Friday? Just rating on a scale of 1 to 5, how confident are you um, uh, heading into Black Friday? Love to see what people um, respond here with. You guys see the poll question?
Yes, Cody, the poll question is
So-
one, and it looks like most
Gotcha.
people are it looks like most people are feeling pretty confident, giving themselves a 4 or a 5 out of 5.
Amazing. I love to see that. That's exactly what we're hoping for, especially for current customers with Vercel. Um, let's move on to talking about like what we recommend as far as preparing for Black Friday success, right? We have a really detailed checklist that we provide to enterprise customers each year that lists out all the features, and then we refresh it each year for customers to really show them the specific things they should be looking into as they kind of head into Black Friday. We've shipped this out this year. If you haven't received it from your CSM yet, I'll be sure that we follow up afterwards, but we'll also have the links here. Sorry, guys. Keeps popping up here. We also have the links that we'll be providing in this call. But some of the things we highly recommend that are critical things that you set up, especially for this year, especially around new product features of Vercel, and we'll get into a little more detail later. Number one is firewall. Setting up firewall rules can really help that you have a successful Black Friday event, and ensuring that you are just feeling secure by default, right? Next is logs and monitoring. Having log drain set up, making sure you understand how to use our monitoring and observability tools. If you have break proxies or CDNs that are in front of Vercel, it's important to make sure that you have those configured correctly and are looking at our docs to make sure that those are solid and ready to go. Finally, performance or load testing can definitely be done on Vercel. In fact, we're fine with any customer running load tests on Vercel. We encourage it because more than likely, we want you to feel confident in the platform, and we know that load testing will give you that reassurance. And then finally, we have some service function considerations on this list. We'll go through the list that we'll share later. It has a lot of detailed information about like things you consider around like your execution and functions that are running on Vercel. Things that we do recommend, but aren't necessarily critical. Install APM, tracking client-side errors, making sure you have an idea of what's going on your application, incredibly important, just to give you a robust idea of what your users are experiencing. Using that www subdomain instead of the root domain, definitely we recommend this at Vercel. It's a definitely important factor and helps you kind of streamline how your site is accessed. Also, front-end observability, again, tracking client-side errors, making sure you have observability around things like core vitals and speed insights. We'll talk a bit more about that later too. Obviously, setting up Vercel WAF, incredibly important for bot mitigation, for example. And, also know how you can deploy to Vercel that isn't necessarily, if like, for example, like GitHub is down, you can use the Vercel CLI and understanding the options there to make sure that you can, deploy if needed without Git involved. Finally, if you have time, understanding the paging tools and building automation around response to incidents related to your site, adding custom for 400 or 500 pages, using like next image or next script, especially if you're in Next.js, those are incredible optimizations that will help your end user experience. And we'll touch on why that matters here in a bit around conversion rates. Finally, review the support expectations with your CSM. This is especially important for enterprise customers. We want to make sure that you understand how to get support and what you can expect from our support team during these critical events. And finally, just making sure the kind of general maintenance that we all should be doing as engineers. Are your packages and runtime versions like up to date? Are they on the latest version of Next? Are you on the latest version of Node that Vercel offers? Incredibly important to make sure that you're getting the best performance that you can. So how is Vercel prepared to ensure you're successful? Three of the key pieces of that are that Vercel infinitely scales. every layer of our infrastructure can scale up or down depending on the traffic that you're receiving. And you don't have to worry about configuring that or monitoring it yourself. Finally, we have intelligent edge caching. So resources of critical metadata and all kinds of other things are stored at the edge that will ensure that we can tolerate like regional based outages. And framework integrations can optionally help with that and ensure that there's optimized like page caching and purging as well. Finally, reliability and speed. If you need to deploy in a minute or roll back, we have instant rollback and all kinds of other features that allow you to feel confident that when you're shipping on Vercel, you've got what you need and you can get it up quickly. Well, there's two key features I want to touch on, especially in this webinar, that are kind of new for this Black Friday season. The first one is function failover regions. So this allows you to deploy your key serverless functions to multiple regions, for example, AWS US East or AWS US West. And if, for example, that AWS region itself as a provider goes down, your functions in production will fall over to that secondary region automatically. And there's no redeployments required on your part. A good note here, though, that Jason reminded me of was that if you're using Vercel Secure Compute, you'll need networks in both private networks in both regions that you're using for failover. Next is obviously, we talked about scaling a bit ago, but auto scaling concurrency. This is a huge thing that in the past 2 years that has been a huge key factor in improving a lot of confidence around Vercel. Gone are the days where you had to request additional concurrency for your serverless functions. And now our auto scaling is 12 times faster to ensure that it can handle that high volume traffic and that high volume number of requests that come in to your functions throughout the sales holiday. And this is, again, ideal for that unpredictable traffic or those flash sale kind of opportunities. A couple of things. One quote we wanted to call out, especially from NZXT last year, was last Black Friday, Cyber Monday was the first time in their history that they had zero downtime over Black Friday, and that's just millions of dollars for sales for them. And we've heard from other customers too, right? I've sat on bridge calls with customers last year that actually kind of inspired the title of this webinar about being boring. One of our large athletic apparel customers was sitting on the call with me, and they were just saying like, wow, everything's so fine. Like, we're so bored. We're actually like dreaming up things to fix on the site because we have just so much confidence in how Vercel's performing through the sales of that. And that just speaks to how critical the tools that we'll touch on here in a minute are that provide you the necessary reassurances that you need to feel confident in what Vercel's going to perform for you through this Black Friday sales event. I think we have another poll question coming up, so we'll send that here. Should be popping on your screens any second. And it's, are you running experimentation during Black Friday? Yes or no, or you don't know? Let's find out.
All right. It looks like most people are, it's actually kind of a toss up between yes and no, but no is slightly leading. And then we got a few people that, aren't sure.
Nice, that's fair. Well, up next, we've got Dom to talk a bit about personalization and running experiments. So I'll pass it over to Dom here.
Yes, thank you. So as Cody mentioned, Vercel offers great tools for Black Friday readiness. I want to highlight one area, personalization and A/B testing. This can significantly boost conversion rates, but traditional client-side implementations often slow down your site, especially during peak traffic. So e-commerce websites often run even small A/B tests, scripts that affect loading speed and impact the user experience. With Vercel Edge middleware, you can handle this server side, eliminating those issues and keeping your site fast and reliable. Now, I want to give you a quick tip. If you're not running any tests on your users on Black Friday, Cyber Monday, remove the A/B testing initialization scripts altogether. No need to load unused scripts that could impact performance. Right. Next slide, please. So let's talk about, so why does this matter? let's talk about the numbers. According to the Little Digital's Milliseconds Make Millions report, even a tiny 1/10 of a second improvement in load time can lead to an 8% increase in conversion rates for retail sites, and for travel sites, that goes up to 10%. It's a small change with a massive impact on the bottom line. Speed is not just about the performance, it's directly tied to revenue. So it's critical that we optimize performance, especially during peak traffic periods like Black Friday. Right, and now I want to show you a social proof. So this is a great example from our enterprise customers, SumUp. They've been able to leverage Vercel's Edge middleware to serve either the control or experiment version of their pages immediately without relying on third-party scripts. And the result, better performance and no more flickering or layout chips. This shows how effective server-side rendering with Edge middleware can be in providing a smooth user experience, even while running experiments. Yeah.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Yeah, experimenting is so important. I'm really fascinated with the ability of a lot of our, especially larger enterprise customers, to run experiments with their platforms and their projects on Vercel. Up next, we've got Krista talking about security in our firewall offering. Excited to hear more.
Yeah, thanks, Cody. So security and firewall, definitely something that could be of helping you stay at peak performance during this really critical time. I was talking with Dom earlier, and he was saying some companies do the majority of their business over the Black Friday weekend. So this is definitely a time that you want to keep your site up and live. So this is something that Vercel wants to do by default. So like Cody mentioned in the beginning, Vercel is a platform that is secure by default. Now, what does that actually mean? I would say it's twofold. The first point being security challenges are primarily handled in an intelligent way behind the scenes by our team. We're going to be monitoring traffic patterns to make sure that we're mitigating single points of attack and DDoS without anyone on your team having to lift a finger. This is something that we do by default, and it's ever changing. You know, as threats are always changing, fraud is always changing, attackers are always, generating new patterns, new bots, new ways to kind of compromise your site. This is something that we already handle by default, and we're only getting better over time. The second part is putting more control in your hands. So we released the firewall, which I'll talk a bit more about momentarily, but suffice to say, it at a baseline can provide any account with the ability to create a custom rule. So this would be blocking a specific IP or JAWS4 fingerprint or region. And recently we released rate limiting. So if you wanted to be more proactive, especially coming up to Black Friday, you could say, hey, for any specific IP address or fingerprint that's hammering your site, obviously in a way that no human, no matter how excited they are about a product, even if they're sitting there refreshing, it's not going to be like realistically more than 60, 100 times in a minute. So any IP that's hammering your site more than that, you should probably block them. So on this slide, this is focusing on the built-in, so that first bullet point. We have the layer 3 firewall. So that's something that, like I said, is managed by our team. So this is, they don't even tell me internally what the rules are because they change so often. They're always being updated, I would say, every day, every week. And it's not something that they're going to widely distribute, even for security internally. It's on a need-to-know basis. The second part, a lot of you probably already know, is Vercel will automatically assign an SSL certificate to every deployment, and we use Let's Encrypt, so it's very easy. I'm sure everybody has at least attempted to add, if not successfully added, a self-signed SSL to a website in the past, but this is something that we handle for you by default, and enterprise accounts are at liberty to bring their own SSL certificate, of course. So lastly, on this slide, we have Vercel Secure Compute. So In a nutshell, this really is just a feature that allows you to securely connect your backend environments through a pair of dedicated IP addresses. These are deployed in a Vercel region of your choice. So statistically speaking, we just say, hey, deploy wherever your backend is hosted in the same region or the closest region for minimal latency. And we also do and this takes about 20 minutes to set up, so pretty easy. It also handles a lot of, SOC 2 compliance needs, anything along those lines. So next slide, please. Okay, so now we're getting to the firewall layer. So a couple months ago, Vercel released our own web application firewall. And this is something that was used immediately in production as soon as it was released. It was tested in production by enterprise accounts before it was ever released, so it was tested very, very heavily in real world scenarios. I personally had a customer working in the AI space who used this to block a kind of tricky attack. It was a lot of rotating IP addresses, and we narrowed it down to a single JAW4 fingerprint, and we blocked it over the weekend, and it handled a weeks, months-long problem that they had been dealing with, and it really only took 30 seconds to set up the rule through the Vercel UI. So this is something that has been used very heavily, as well as something the Vercel team has been iterating on like crazy. I would say the most recent two features that came out for the web application firewall are the rate limiting, as I mentioned. So that one was being asked for, a lot. You could be really proactive instead of reactive, saying, oh my gosh, we're getting attacked. We've narrowed it down to an IP. Let's block it. We'll prevent that from even happening for a DDoS. If someone is going to be hammering your site, they're just going to be automatically blocked. Or you can even put them in challenge mode, just making sure that it's not a good bot that you might want access to your site. For example, I was working with a company that sells very aesthetic plants on their e-commerce site. The Pinterest bots were very interested in their website. So Pinterest bots were hammering their site pretty hard because I think people really want to look at pictures of plants on Pinterest, myself included. So that's just something that maybe you want that good marketing. You want links leading back to your site. Something that is even more recent than that, the top feature request has been bot protection. So we have a couple templates out, and I call them templates because they're on the Vercel templates page. But what it really is a pre-made custom rule that you can install that just blocks the most basic bad bots, typical scripts that you would see coming through your site. So that's something that we released recently. And I will wrap this up with a nice bow with the OWASP top 10. If we could go back one slide just before jumping into this one. So I would be remiss if I didn't mention the OWASP top 10. So OWASP, the organization outside of Vercel, the top 10 most common types of attacks that could come to your site, SQL injection, cross-site scripting. They're going to keep track of those top 10 most common types of attacks. And on enterprise, OWASP is enabled by default, which is also part of that secure by default philosophy that we have at Vercel. Yep. So the very last slide I have for you all today, this is just a quick screenshot of the firewall. So gone are the days of SSHing into your server and setting up, some rules via Linux commands. This is something that you can do through the UI. Even if you are really, really good at Linux commands, I think this is a great representation of, you can visually see what type of traffic is going through your site. You can visually see the rule set that you have enabled and published already, and you don't have to actually SSH into your server or, potentially cause any mayhem there. So that is it for me.
Amazing.
Perfect.
Thanks, Krista. Up next, we got Jason.
Thank you. And so ideally, as you go into the Black Friday season, you want your site to be set up for success in terms of reliability, but then you also want your site to be set up for success, as Dom mentioned, to be able to convert as much revenue as possible, right? When you see your traffic doubling or tripling, you also want to make sure as that traffic comes in, it turns into tangible conversions and then ultimately revenue for the business, right? And so the reason many companies turn to Vercel is because we help people improve their end user site performance. But how do you actually measure a lot of that? It can be very tricky where a lot of times customers might go and measure their site performance via ad hoc lighthouse tests, or they might measure it a certain way in a closet in Nebraska. But ultimately, how Google looks at your end user performance can be slightly more different, but they also take a more holistic approach. And so what Google does is, as they are the owner of the Google Chrome browser, they sample all of the traffic through there. And as you visit sites, they actually track how well the end user performance was, matching to the 3 core web vitals they use to sort of track their site performance. And so as part of this, they take all of that site performance data and then they actually make this publicly available. And so Google calls this the Google Crux data. And so inside here, you can see on the screenshot, this is the publicly available dashboard that you can see, and it maps out over time how your site performance has been from a end user perspective. And so if we go to the next slide here, the issue with that is that this is only a sampling of Google Chrome data. And so as part of this, while maybe from a desktop perspective, it might be holistic, from a mobile perspective, it means you probably are only collecting Android visitors, right? Who typically also probably have lower end devices and might skew the data a little lower than what the actual end user performance could be. And so because of that, we typically recommend customers enable one of our products called Speed Insights. And so this enables you to get real-time data right on the Vercel dashboard of all of your core web vitals. And so as part of developing the site, and then also probably now as you guys are launching into Black Friday, it's great to have this data now so you can quickly be able to make any adjustments as needed to ensure that your site is ready and is able to convert as much revenue as possible. And then specifically, even some of the harder core web vitals that are much more tricky to be able to optimize, like layout shift or INP, it shows you specifically the areas and the CSS selectors that you need to go into. And so then as you want to actually go in and start optimizing these different web vitals, we have a couple different recommendations, and really if you look at the last one, hopefully most of you guys are already following the last one, which is leveraging a front-end cloud. But really, the top thing we see from customers is as long as they're optimized on their rendering strategy, that will help immensely from an architectural perspective. And so being able to lean in to be able to statically generate as much pages as possible decreases that time to first byte, and then ultimately will help your core web vitals. But the biggest thing is being able to pre-render as much HTML as you can, like Dom said, especially when we're talking about personalization or A/B testing. The more you can avoid client-side JavaScript and things defer to the browser, the better. The more you can pre-render multiple variants of the page, optimize that, you'll see faster site performance, better core web vitals, ultimately more organic traffic and more conversions to your site. So if we jump to the next page, as you guys are converting these users, ultimately you want to be able to make sure that in case there are any errors on the page, we do also include products. One of them is called monitoring. And so this is going to be able to sort of bring in all the different things, like especially Krista mentioned talking about the WAF. If you guys are trying to track down anomalous traffic, monitoring is a tool to quickly allow you to view different patterns, view malicious fingerprints or agents in your site, be able to quickly take that, block it in the WAF. And then similarly, we have another tool called Web Analytics. As you guys are tracking different metrics in terms of conversions or end user traffic, Web Analytics is a privacy-friendly version enabling essentially cookieless traffic counting. So you'll see probably a more accurate metric in terms of web visitor count, add to cart metrics. If you leverage Web Analytics, It'll give you a much clearer view of how your site is performing in terms of revenue. So I'll throw it back to Cody, I think.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. Yeah, our monitoring tools are super powerful, especially around core vitals and speed insights. Super keen to see people adopt those and just see how transformative that information can be on helping them just optimize the performance of their projects on Vercel and ensure they have a great user experience. And like Dom said earlier, that having a really optimized site directly impacts your conversion rates. So, um, final note for me here is just on kind of what you can expect around Black Friday and like the resources that we've provided you today and are available to you. First and foremost, going to Black Friday, knowing how to get support is super important. So understanding how to open a case in Support Center is incredibly a good thing for you just to review. Also want to note that we have 24/7 support right now at Vercel. That means we have someone actively watching our support queue come in, and we're making sure that your cases are reviewed by a real human as much as possible. And I also want to note, like the average first response time for sub one cases for our enterprise customers is less than 20 minutes on average, or I think over the past over last quarter. So we anticipate to keep that and driving that down and making sure that, with this 24/7 coverage, we're going to be here and ready to support you and make sure that you are feeling confident and when if something were to go wrong. We don't think it will, but if it does, we're here for you. Finally, your CSM, be sure to rely on them, especially for enterprise customers. You have a customer success manager here at Vercel. They can help you address specific concerns that you might have around the sales holiday and even put you in touch with someone, potentially even from my team, to talk with you more directly about the specific concerns that you might have. Also, we've shared a couple of resources here in the chat. Our Black Friday guide for enterprise customers it has been posted here as a link to a Notion site. We also have our Vercel community guide that I think was posted, and that's really aimed at our like pro level users because it avoids some of the enterprise only features in our recommendations. But also, speaking of Vercel community, a huge resource and opportunity for all of you to become involved as a way for you to both share your knowledge around using Vercel and also read about how others are using and others approaching solving those technical challenges that they face when deploying to projects on Vercel. And finally, also, I always want to shout out the Vercel status page, vercel-status.com. Incredibly great resource and a direct way for you to, if Vercel has any kind of service disruption, that's going to be your source where you'll be able to see updates and keep into. And you can also subscribe to that as well. So you can go in and subscribe to get emails or text message alerts, or even connect it to your Slack instance, and it'll pop up an alert for you. Incredibly great resource that I recommend every enterprise customer setting up as they onboard with Vercel. I think that's it for as far as slides goes. We'll move to the Q&A now with the whole panel here. I think we've got at least a couple questions on the block here. Let me see here. I gotta pull them up. All right, so we've got a couple questions from Thomas here. And by the way, if you have additional questions, click that Q&A button at the bottom, and you'll be able to type them in.
Yeah, I think
go
I
ahead, Krista.
can
Sure.
answer this one. Let me make sure I read it fully so I can answer it in the best way. Protecting against anomalous traffic. I don't see a WASP core rule set enable. Yes, so easiest first. So the OWASP core rule set is enabled for enterprise accounts. So hobby and pro do not have it enabled. But or were these DDoS? Yeah, so just an anomaly or just a standalone attack. Again, WASP any blocks. Yeah, so the Vercel firewall won't show traffic that's been blocked by our team because I don't think it will even really get to that point. The Vercel firewall monitoring system is just going to show traffic that's been blocked by the custom rule set. So as far as being able to detect JAW4 fingerprint that is typically bad, so I can kind of walk you through my thought process. If you have any tools on your end, like analytics setup that are showing you the IP addresses, so we have the Vercel Web Analytics, but if you're using like Google Web Analytics or really any way to track all of the traffic that's coming into your site, I typically will look at a range and you can see a spike in traffic, or if you've already detected a pattern, drill down to that specific time period where it's happening. And then you can, if you have a way of looking at the top IPs that are coming to your site, there is a tool, a free tool that I can use. Let me see if I have it pulled up. There are free tools online, but then there's also, if you do who is in the command line, I know that you can get more information about an IP address. So ipinfo.io is the free tool that I use, and I'll link that in the answer. So, and here, yeah, if you have, oh, I didn't realize. I think it just went into answered. Okay. So that ipinfo.io, that gives you some more information just about general IP, the IPs that are coming to your site. If you are looking at a specific one and it's from a region that doesn't typically access your site, or if it says VPN, those are kind of dead giveaways that, you know, somebody's using a VPN to access your site, especially if it's a repeat offender. And if you're having a bunch of IPs that are regularly or rotating attacking your site, but you notice them all pointing to one fingerprint. We have an internal tool here that we use to kind of drill down on it. So if you submit a ticket or ask your representative at Vercel to help you look into it, that's how we would do it. We would run a couple SQL queries to find to basically just drill down on that timeline and find the specific fingerprint and block it. And that's what we did for the one AI company. So as long as you have any sort of analytics installed, or if you can talk to your Vercel representative, that's something that we can help you set up. I think I answered the question fully. The link to that template page.
I think Thomas in the chat was asking, so there's no way that we can do that on our own. I think referring to the jaw floor.
I mean, if you have analytics set up on your end, just even like Google Analytics, Vercel Analytics, and if it gives you information about the fingerprints that are coming to your site, then yes, you can do it on your own. If you do not, then I would say reach out to Vercel, either via support ticket or if you have a channel open with us and we can. Yeah. So yeah, some tools don't. We have a tool internally that allows us to look into it. So we can definitely help you out with that for sure.
Thanks, Krista. I know one question that comes up really often, almost reliably every year around Black Friday is, when does Vercel recommend like me or my team go into a code freeze ahead of Black Friday? Do you guys have thoughts on that one?
So I think what you said on the beginning, it should be exactly the same. There are teams that they don't, basically, because they have so much confidence in the pipeline infrastructure and tests and everything. However, you know, 1 week is probably a normal thing.
Yeah, in my experience, we have customers who feel like they, just for their own peace of mind, they stop pushing to production, essentially, other than hot fixes, about 3 to 4 weeks before. Some will go right up until the day of. Some will actually be deploying throughout the weekend as they like want to ship specific features, which is just really amazing. That's exactly what we love to see from customers that have that much confidence in deploying to production like during Black Friday weekend, which is incredible.
Yeah, I think most of the enterprise customers, they have the hotfix they deploy, they can deploy like easily, but like not pushing like major features. But some are doing this under the feature flags as well. Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm. All right, I think we have another question from team. seems like there's a recommendation for a Web Vitals project from the Google Chrome team to get numbers that aren't 30-day averages. Does anybody have any thoughts on that?
First thing I'm thinking, probably I saw Jason unmuted. All right, I'm gonna say what I'm thinking in 3 seconds, and you're gonna say what you're thinking, and if it's the same thing. All right, ready? 3, 2, 1. Speed insights.
Speed insights.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
said it
Speed
at the
insights.
exact same time. So, yeah, so I did not know that Google Chrome had an open source way of viewing it. This is really cool. I'm gonna star this and check it out later. Yeah, but we have a, I don't know what the delta between this and our tool is without checking it out more, but the Speed Insights, I'm gonna send the link in the question, but I'm also gonna post it in the chat to everyone. We have a real-time monitoring system that's based on your actual traffic with the whole dashboard that will show you, I think, really similar, if not identical, vitals to what I'm just seeing kind of quickly scrolling through the GitHub repo. What do you think, Jason?
Yeah, it'll collect similar data, but then it's on you to actually store the data, provide a dashboard to show the data. And then Vercel on top of that also helps you align the data to specific Git commits. You want to be able to track down when you caused an issue, but it's just another way to track the data. I'll put in the chat what I typically use to pull Google Crux data. It's a new way to, it shows good charts and stuff. Yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
Sweet. And I think there's one other question that I think a lot of customers tend to ask about ahead of Black Friday, and it's, can I run load testing on Vercel or against Vercel? And the answer is yes, absolutely. We definitely encourage if you feel strongly that load testing is going to help you. Load testing is 100% supported by Vercel. We have had no issues. In fact, as enterprise customers, if you reach out to your CSM, they can even help align our teams with you to make sure it's successful. Now, we don't execute it for you, but we're happy to make sure that you can have a successful load test. I think even we've had customers from big to small who have chosen to run load tests against Vercel and their projects on Vercel. Yeah, they've all really just been generally happy with it, whether they're doing it for measurement of like performance, or they just want to feel that peace of mind going into a large sales event like Black Friday. They absolutely, it's fully capable of doing that on Vercel. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. I think that's going to be it for the Q&A today. This was super enjoyable. I love Black Friday at Vercel. I've been here for, like I said, 2.5 years now. I've done 2 of these, so I'm looking forward to putting the 3rd under my belt. Yeah, Jason, Krista, Dom, appreciate you all joining us today. Value your expertise and your experience with our customers, and I hope that our enterprise customers on this call have had gained a lot of insight here too. Definitely check out the resources that we've provided you in the chat. I think, Chandler, we might be sending those again, maybe in an email follow-up. I'm not sure.
Yes.
But yeah, we'll send them again in a follow-up email after the call. So yeah, thank you all so much, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.